citizens, I am Padmini Arhant, author, presenter, padminiarhant.com, prakriti.padminiarhant.com, representing the Divine Mission. The topic is Israel. Dear citizens in Gaza and Lebanon, Assalamu alaikum, and hello to citizens in Lebanon affected in this latest aggression by Israel, especially the developments in the past week until now. I begin with my sincere condolences to the victims, the families in Gaza, the rest of Palestinian territory, as it happens to be affected as well, and now lately the citizens in Lebanon. And that goes for the citizens in Israel as well, since they have also been affected since October 7, 2023, and the war that began in the aftermath of October 7, 2023. There is no doubt innocent civilians in all these territories, especially in Gaza, with Israel's warfare aided and facilitated by United States and the rest of Western allies, have inflicted tremendous casualties. In worldview, the world witnessed Gaza being assaulted, attacked by Israel with disproportionate military aggression. The weaponry that were provided by United States, Germany, Britain, Canada, France, Australia, all these Western allies, and that goes for the non-Western ally as well, such as India, at the onset of Gaza war, was also involved in the military aggression in terms of providing some form of ammunition like the BrahMos, I believe. At least that's what was reported at the beginning of Gaza war, when Israeli aggression began against the people in Gaza. It is going to be a year now, in a matter of days, since Israel's aggression began. There is no doubt the casualties in the aftermath of this warfare has been enormous. The official figure has been somewhere around 41,000, but I personally believe that there has to be more, and this is not counting those who have fallen victims and perhaps have not been even detected or found. They might very well be lying under the rubbles, since the Israel's military aggression was not just targeted at Hamas's headquarters or Hamas's military assets, as Israel claimed to be, but then the world witnessed and saw that Israel's aggression was indiscriminate, and it targeted not just the so-called Hamas's official buildings in Gaza. Israel's aggression targeted all civilian facilities, whether it be the residential buildings, apartments, hospitals, schools, kindergartens, public premise. All happen to be a fair game. And of course, Israeli military and especially Israeli politics under the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was that Hamas was using Gazan civilians as the human shield. That always is the explanation. Whenever military aggression takes place, the aggressor always claims that those whom they were targeting, they were using civilians as human shield. But then with the sophisticated technology, the logistics and various intelligence apparatus available to Israel, aided by United States as the forefront facilitator and aggressor under Biden-Harris administration, the targets could have been more selective, even though I do not approve of any form of military aggression, any form of violence against civilians and the general population, even if the politics, the political leaderships, along with their military, are claiming to pursue the so-called terrorist. In this instance, they were referring to Hamas, whom Israel had approved and installed Hamas in power. As I mentioned in my recent publication, as I have stated earlier as well, Hamas was selected and approved by Israel, and especially Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And it is known amongst members in politics, and that goes for the press and media as well. Hamas is not someone who just came about out of the blue from nowhere. Hamas was in fact selected and approved by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Israeli government, and this was the Hamas political representation, was even the idea of Israeli government and especially Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to counteract and even pose a form of opposition to then opponent, that is Israel's opponent, the PLO, and PLO leader, the late Yasser Arafat. That is the fact. Having installed Hamas in power, and Hamas, by the way, was elected by Gazans in an election that was monitored by international members, and it was supervised by the international members who visited Gaza at that time, if I'm not mistaken. Among them was the former president, Jimmy Carter, member of the independent committee that monitored and supervised the election in Gaza when Hamas was elected by the people in Gaza. That is another fact that seems to have been forgotten by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and that goes for the ally United States. Now, the aggression itself that began in the aftermath of October 7, which again could have been easily averted by Israel, and it has been a colossal failure by Israeli politics, intelligence, and homeland security, their domestic as well as foreign security, Shin Bet and Mossad. So there has been an all-around willful negligence, considering that there were adequate warnings on potential Hamas attack inside Israel. The information was also provided by own Israeli IDF rank and file surveillance. Yet Israeli politics, intelligence and military, for some reason, did not take any preemptive actions. Had that been done, then the status quo would have been different. It's going to be a year since Gaza aggression began. The official figure that has been disclosed so far is 41,000, but like as I said, it has to be more than that, at least another 20 or 30 more, and then this is not counting the victims perhaps lying under the rubble. And since Gaza has been razed to the ground in the heavy bombardment and shelling that has been going on, together with air raids by Israel, facilitated by United States and the rest of Western allies. Now here is the situation that I would like to bring to Israel as well as their allies, such as United States and the rest of them, when they continue to argue that since Israel's aggression began in Gaza, the other members came to the Gazan population rescue, which was only expected and understandable. Just like the Western allies joined forces and got together in Israel's defense, it needs to be understood that the population in Gaza were mercilessly targeted, citing Hamas as the target, even though the entire Gazan population were regarded Hamas in the eyes of Israel, and that goes for United States and the rest of Western allies, which is quite intriguing to me, how this kind of assumption being taken that the entire civilian population in Gaza, that included humanitarian workers, medical professionals, social services, all those people who had nothing to do with the Hamas attack on October 7, all of them were targeted in the air raids and the continuous shelling that took place since October 8th until now. Western allies turned to Israel's defense without any delay. At the same time, in Gaza's rescue, the empathizers with Gazan population, the Palestinian population, such as Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, and that goes for Iran directly, even though Houthis from Yemen and Hezbollah in Lebanon were aided by Iran, as the Western nations call them Iran's proxies. Hezbollah and Houthis are Iran's proxies, and that they got engaged in this warfare. It is not being treated alike. Like, as I said, Western allies apparently could go to Israel's defense, not just moral support. Israel has been provided with massive financial assistance, courtesy American taxpayers. Billions and billions of dollars have been provided in just a matter of a year, and that began within a week and then into months. There were already $26 billion, and recently, I believe, another $8 to $9 billion have been provided to Israel in this warfare. And then, not to mention the weapons cache from United States, and that goes for the rest of Western allies. Western allies apparently could do everything that is possible to aid Israel, and when the same thing was being done, not even to the level and proportion that Western allies have provided to Israel, there has been objection and big hue and cry. All of these other members, Hezbollah, Houthis, Iran, and whoever had come to Gazans' rescue, they've all been branded terrorists. When Gazans are being helped by the sympathizers, they are being branded terrorists. And when Israel had resumed relentless attacks, indiscriminate attacks against civilians in Gaza, not even sparing children, infants, women, the sick, the young and the old, all of them have been fair targets in this warfare. This was witnessed by the world. It's not like it's just a propaganda. The entire warfare, since it began, has been well documented, and it has been presented to the global citizens, and that is what prompted the global protest seeking permanent ceasefire that Israel had not agreed to until now. That is the status quo in Gaza. It appears that there is no such thing as Gaza anymore. It has been reduced to rubbles. It has been decimated beyond recognition, as it has been confirmed by not just international media, but also in the latest United Nations address. The Fatah leader, the Palestinian territory in West Bank, President Mahmoud Abbas, also confirmed that Gaza is not the same that it used to be before October 7, 2023. While this has been going on, Israel had turned its attention to Lebanon. And Israel's response was that Hezbollah was attacking Israel, so Israel had to retaliate to Hezbollah. That would not have even happened had Israel heeded international call in the course of access to humanitarian aid when the ceasefire was being requested. There is no doubt that there was just this back and forth between Hamas and Israel. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had vowed that unless, I quote, Hamas is eradicated, Israel was not going to relent to international call for permanent ceasefire or any kind of peace treaty.
End quote.
In a better late than never, the Biden administration, when they came up with the proposal for a peace plan, it was not even paid attention by Prime Minister Netanyahu. That peace plan could have been adopted with permanent ceasefire. That was the stipulation to the peace treaty, which one can imagine is a natural condition for civilians to survive, and those who were forced out of the Gazan territory, especially relocating the entire almost 2 million population in Gaza, earlier from northern part of Gaza to southern, and then when they reached the southern side of Gaza, it's the Rafah border with Egypt, then they were not spared there either by Israel. And again, without any access to humanitarian aid, from drinking water to food, medicines, the access was denied to nearly 2 million population trapped in that Rafah border, Rafah crossing with Egypt. In any warfare, these kind of atrocities, for this qualifies as an atrocity towards civilians. Majority of them were civilians. Even if Israel were to say that Hamas was using Gazan population as human shield, but even then, could it be possible that the entire 2 million people were all Hamas in any rational estimate? I don't think so. But yet, Israel was insisting that was the case, and then went ahead with not only denying humanitarian aid to the 2 million population who were trapped in the enclave. They were displaced from their homes and the residential areas, basically shuttled from north to south, and then from there they had nowhere to go. The shelling began relentless with no mercy. This is unprecedented in modern times for a nation such as Israel that continuously reminds the world of Holocaust and letting the world know repeatedly about the Holocaust and Holocaust experience would just continue to commit the same that Israel says that was such a horrific experience for the Jews in the past century. One would think that if they have been the victims of any kind of injustice, violence, ill treatment, and in this instance it has always been referred to as Holocaust, if that is the case, then one would refrain from inflicting such things on anybody and think hard before they even indulge in any form of harmful behavior towards the people, even if they consider them their worst enemy. Especially after what Israel has been saying about the Holocaust experience, it would be in human nature never to allow anyone to experience what they went through. That was not the case. It has been the other way around. It had exceeded even, I would say, the Holocaust experience in the past century. What the Palestinians have been subject to over 7 decades now, nearing almost 8 decades, since the creation of the State of Israel in Palestine, what the Palestinians have been subject to is horrific and unimaginable, again with no relenting from the aggressor. In this instance, it is Israel who is the colonizer, the occupier of Palestine, the Palestinian territories, and even with Hamas in power, it's not like Hamas in power was able to govern Gaza without any interference from Israel, as it has been cited erroneously by the former presidential candidate and Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and the likes, whether it be in Democrat Party or on the other side of the aisle. It is not like Hamas was in power and Israel never interfered in Hamas governance. To the contrary, Gaza has been on Israel's unilateral trade embargo, prohibiting any form of economic activities, independent economic activities in Gaza, or for that matter in West Bank. And that goes without saying. East Jerusalem is another complete occupation by Israel, especially the Al-Aqsa Mosque, the continuous raids that has been conducted by Israel, the military raid of the place of worship for any religion, if that is being raided with military incursion and violence against the worshippers during prayer, Islamic important celebrations, whether it be Eid al-Fitr or any important occasions where people normally go to the place of worship to pray, and even at that time, Israel's military raid has been going on a routine basis. For Israel to say that even with Hamas in power, that Gazans had autonomous status is not true, for Israel has continuously intervened and always exerted control and authority over, whether it be in West Bank or for that matter in Gaza, and that again includes East Jerusalem as well. The violence, the military raids of the holy place of worship, Al-Aqsa Mosque, the aggression that has gone on for nearly a year now in Gaza, having spread that across the region, across the border into Lebanon, apparently in response to Hezbollah's attacks from southern Lebanon. But then, like as I said, had Israel heeded the international call for permanent ceasefire and halted the aggression that could have easily freed Israeli hostages to begin with, and then that could have also brought some relief and respite to the Gazan population, majority of whom have already fallen victims to Israel's brutal attacks, funded and fueled by United States predominantly, followed by the rest of Western allies. Now, with the recent attacks against Lebanon, it's the same pattern. Apartment buildings, wherever civilian population have been found in the public premise, those are the areas that have been targeted by Israel's military, and of course, obviously, on Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's directive and instructions. The Israeli military had carried out these attacks, which is condemnable. And it so happens that the Lebanese population, in the last 3 weeks or so attacks from Israel, it was also triggered with the pager on their cell phones and mobile devices, which again is, when one comes to think of it, it is war crime. Innocent civilian population have been targeted en masse in the form of cyber attack, one could say, since the infiltration of mobile devices that is so commonly used and something that has become the reliable source of communication for general public worldwide. Perhaps that is why Israel pursued that kind of warfare, targeting innocent population with this pager, where the false information via SMS or text messages sent to the mobile devices, again across the population. It's not like Israel has been very selective and only targeted Hezbollah and Hezbollah members. Even otherwise, Hezbollah is not something that Israel and United States as well as the Western allies have been describing all along. Hezbollah is a political party in Lebanon, members with portfolios, different ministries, and these are members elected by the people in Lebanon. It is not like they have some terror outfits and factions dwelling in caves, and something like the Talibans and the earlier Mujahideens were known to have been operating in Afghanistan. That was not the case, and United States, Israel, and the rest of Western allies are fully aware of Hezbollah as an organization, their political representation and all that. All of a sudden, Hezbollah turned out to be a terrorist organization, and claiming that the members, whether it be the late Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah or the other military commanders whom Israel claimed to have eliminated in the air raids and airstrikes in the last 3 weeks, they were not living in some caves and hidden areas of the hills or something like that, as the Talibans were known to be in Afghanistan. They had to be in the city, operating and attending to their official duties and services as members of their political party, and having been elected by the people in those constituencies, whether it be southern Lebanon or in and around the districts and areas of Beirut. This was all common knowledge to Israel. Of all the people, Israel knows almost all of their targets, not just basic information, the movements, all the particulars. Even if they happen to forget, they can always check with Israel about their long lost relatives. Where are they and how are they doing? For Israel keeps tab on all of these details about their target, including their extended relatives and whatnot, to minutiae. That being the case, it's very hard to believe that Israel, the so-called precision targets, somehow happen to include the civilian casualties as it did in Gaza, the same way in Lebanon. I'm Padmini Arhant signing off right now. I will return with remaining segments on this topic. Thanks for watching.